This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 26. Today's episode is sponsored by Nicole Burgess, who is an empowerment mentor. She helps the highly sensitive, the introverted, the intuitive, and/or spiritual woman in breaking free from the good girl facade and blaze her own soul-filled trail. Schedule your discovery call today. Go to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com. Well, welcome, sisters. In today's episode, I want to talk about being introverted versus anxiety or fear. I often hear a lot of comments from people who say, well, I can't go to this event because I'm introverted, or I can't do this because, I'm an introverted person. And oftentimes what that means is there's either social anxiety or there's some other form of fears coming up. It has nothing to do with being introverted or extroverted. So if you haven't listened to episode 6, that is the episode where I am speaking with Stacy Horn, and we're talking all about temperaments. She really specializes in working with psychotherapists, healers, visionaries, about helping them understand who their ideal client is. Really, for first and foremost, is through the temperaments and also understanding themselves better with that, like who do they attract into their businesses. So if you haven't listened to it, I'm going to have a link here in the show notes that you can go back and check out that episode as well. So I'm going to describe really what introverted means, or introversion. And so Stacy is trained in Inner Kinetics, which is through Ray Lincoln. And oftentimes all that is that first letter in those 4 letters of whether you're doing a personality test or you're through Myers-Briggs or you're doing the Inner Kinetics temperament test, that first letter is either an E or an I. E is for extroversion, I is for introversion. So the way that Ray Lincoln describes being an introvert is, again, you're more like what fills your battery up, what fills your energy up. And I'm going to talk about how Carl Jung talked about that as well. But how Ray describes it is, the energy is more directed inward. You're not easily read by others, which I often hear that feedback for people who know me or see me out in public. You may be more selective in kind of the outside stimuli that impacts your system. It could be loud noises, crowds disturb you. You've got really a strong focus. You really do enjoy solitude. You may be a little slower to evaluate. You could be restless sometimes in social settings, unless, depending on those other 2 letters that come afterwards, if you get some deep connections going on, you can really enjoy those conversations. Again, you really like the quietness and solitude, to be alone with your thoughts and the imagination that's going on and the ideas you may be creating. You may have fewer friendships because you want that deeper connection. And then the other thing is, oftentimes as introverted folks, where you need to think before you do respond or talk to the person in return. And I'm sure many of you are identifying with that as well. Just like, oh yeah, that's totally me. Which again, that's the majority of my clientele that I serve. Because again, if you don't know, I am an INFJ, which is an introvert. I am intuitive. I'm feeling. And then I'm also a planner. The J just means like the lifestyle. And so for me, I'm a planner. I like schedules. I like things to be purposeful, that sort of thing. So Carl Jung really talked about extroversion and introversion truly meaning where you do focus your energy, like where you really orient it. So he talks about the extroverts, they orient their energy really to the outer world, whereas introverts, of course, we do that to our inner world. That's really all the I and the E mean. With Myers-Briggs, the way they describe, they call it more of the personality test versus the temperament test like Ray Lincoln does. And so they talk about, I is really, you get energy from dealing with ideas and pictures and memories, and all those reactions are really in your head. They're in your inner world. You enjoy doing things alone or maybe with one or two people that you're comfortable with. You love reflection time, and that's part of how you get really clear on the ideas that are going through your mind and then deciding to act. And there you have to be very mindful as well, because you can get stuck in really ruminating or going over and over and over something, which is more anxiety-based, than it can be that deep reflecting on things. So if that becomes an excuse, well, I need to think about it more versus maybe bouncing it off of somebody else or just taking action, that may be more fear-based. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes, again, for HSPs, I know it's much more of that really deep processing and thinking about things before they take action. Now I want to talk a little bit about discerning whether it's truly fear-based, scarcity mindset, old belief systems, or it's more of like an anxiety type of thing that's coming up. So being an introvert does not mean in any way, shape, or form we do not like social events. Again, depending on those next two letters, sometimes having those social events, yes, they can deplete energy levels. That goes back to the I. But it does not mean that you don't enjoy sometimes those conversations. You can go into group settings and you can talk about so many great ideas, especially when there's a lot of other similar folks in that arena. You can really enjoy having those discussions, deep conversations, and that can actually lift you up. And at the same time, knowing you need to kind of have a buffer maybe before the event to reserve your energy, and then you're needing time, quiet time afterwards to restore your energy. Anxiety or fear-based thinking is more like, oh, I can't do that. Oh my gosh. So that could truly be social anxiety, which I'm not going to get too detailed in the diagnostic piece of it, which is more therapy-based. But it's looking at, do I avoid it because one, it's out of my comfort zone. Two, I have imposter syndrome going on and I don't think I can't do this. Or am I telling myself I'm not good enough, or they're going to make fun of me, I'm going to be judged? That's fear-based. That's anxiety-based. That has nothing to do with your introversion. If you are avoiding certain tasks or certain events or certain people, again, that's not due to being an introvert or an extrovert. Typically, that is due to there's either fear, or rightfully so, it's not wanting to be in a relationship with a specific person anymore because they're toxic, meaning they bring you down, they're very negative, or they're abusive, or they're putting you down, or they're physically harmful to you. So being an introvert does not get you out of doing what you need to do in life and where you want to go. That's just part of who you are. The other piece of that then goes to managing those fears, managing those anxieties, challenging really those old thought processes so that you can be more of who you are and live the life where you're thriving in it versus feeling overwhelmed and stressed out all the time. So for example, let's say, you work for a corporation and they've got a networking event that's going to happen on Friday, and you found out on Monday. So it's building in some time before that event and then also after that event. I've heard some people talk about the way they kind of focus on when there's networking meetings is maybe look for the people that are kind of on the outskirts of that room. More often than not, they're probably introverts. And I go in with the focus of I'm going to really talk to one or two people. That's kind of my goal I set for myself. My body can still have a response of, oh my goodness, it's feeling a little nervous because I don't know where I'm going perfectly, or I don't know who's going to be there. And then it's literally getting present. That's where the mindfulness practice helps. That's where positive self-talk, it's like, hey, it's okay to not know exactly where I'm going. You will get there. And it's okay to not know how the whole meeting's going to unfold or who you're going to meet. This is the adventure. So when we begin to flip how we really focus our thinking, that can change a lot of the nervousness and the fear base that can happen in the mind. So for example, I know I've talked, I believe in some other episodes, that if we're focused on, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Oh my gosh, this is going to be awful. This is the worst thing ever. Your brain is literally getting triggered. The amygdala, the little itty bitty piece inside the brain there, gets triggered like, hey, we've got a saber-toothed tiger coming on. There's going to be a lion at this event. We need to send out all the adrenaline, the cortisol levels, everything else out to our limbs so we can get ready for fight, flight, or freeze, right? Well, that's so not helpful for us because then it just depletes our energy really quickly. Versus if we begin to tell ourselves, I'm really excited about this, I'm excited about this, your body can still have signs of nervousness in the sense like maybe your armpits get sweaty, your voice maybe shakes a little bit, stomach kind of turns, and it's normal, right? Again, when you're using mindfulness and getting back in touch with your body versus in your head, that can help calm all of that down. That's more, the brain then says, the amygdala says, okay, we are not fighting a saber-toothed tiger or a lion today. She's actually saying she's excited about this, so we're good to go. And all the adrenaline stays in the places that it needs to, whether it's digesting food or the breathing stays relaxed. It's not all fired up, needing to go out to the limbs. Another thing I hear often is, well, I'm shy, which, yeah, that may be more of, I guess I think about shyness in the sense of I pause before I respond. Oftentimes, right, where I kind of take in the environment before I'm doing any sort of responding. So I may be a little slower to warm up to the bigger event type of thing. But that is not, I'm not worried about being judged by who I am or what I'm going to say to people. They get to be who they are. I'm getting to be who I am. Remember, I stay on my side of the sidewalk. They get to stay on their side of the sidewalk. I'm not going to take on other people's stuff. But oftentimes how I refer to being shy and reserved, there's more of a negative thing to it, which again, it's more fear-based is what I'm hearing from people. And being able to shift that, it's like, okay, if there's a fear coming up, one, I get curious with it. And then I'm going to pay attention, like, is it serving me or is it not? Is it my growth edge? And I need to keep taking those steps forward so that I gain more confidence each time I'm managing the fear versus it managing me. Remember, Lynn and I talked about the, fear driving your car. I believe that was in episode 4. And it's looking back and saying, wait a minute, I'm the one driving my car. I'm the one driving my life. Nobody else is responsible for it except for me. So if the fear, if the social anxiety, if anxiety in general is running everything in my life, what are steps I can do to manage that? Because it's not my introversion that is stopping me from being and doing what I want in my life. It's more fear and anxiety that is. So most of you are aware, and if this is the first time you're listening, then I'm going to say to this again. But I so recommend for introverted women, and I know for those who are listening, if you're sensitive and or a highly sensitive person, having some sort of mindfulness practice is key to really managing so much of these fears. One, you gain a better understanding when you go within and you begin to pay attention to what thoughts that you're really holding on to, and then having self-compassion and letting those go. If you have a lot of limiting beliefs that you learned really early on as a child, you can go back to episode 17 where I talk about limiting beliefs, kind of where they come from and some steps in order to break free from them. But part of the mindfulness is it literally grows the gray matter in your brain, meaning instead of you becoming reactive to things, and kind of oftentimes that like reinforces the anxiety, because what'll happen is when the women I work with, they're like, well, I just don't go to those things anymore. Well, that's reinforcing your anxiety. So it begins to drive your car, drive your life more than you were doing that. With mindfulness practice, with meditation, with going out in nature, with exercise, with journaling, you begin to shift where you're focusing your thoughts. You begin to literally rewire your neurological pathways in your brain. And with that, you go from reacting to responding. You're more able to pay attention to your body's signs. That's like, okay, I need to take a deep breath here because I can feel that anxiety or that nervousness building up in my system, and I need to do self-care with that. And it's letting go of the judgment because you need that. Remember, the introverted brain does a lot more of deep processing. And we know this also from, if you're a highly sensitive person, there is a lot more of the deep processing that happens within your brain. And so you're just a deep thinker and you need that restorative sleep. You need to have some good quality quiet time and breaking that up through the day if you need to, or having a bigger chunk, especially at nighttime. I can't stress enough having good sleep hygiene so that you can truly fall asleep, stay asleep, and rejuvenate over the nighttime and then wake up more refreshed during the day. But all of that helps impact also keeping your anxiety levels down. And I know many of you already know this, that it's like, oh, it's great, Nicole. I know I need to get more sleep, but all these other things get in the way. Well, again, that whole practicing mindfulness, doing some exercise, even walking, right? It helps get some of that out of your physical system, your body, right? If you've been holding on that tension, that's why massages oftentimes are really good for many people, because it helps break that free from the system and they're not holding it anymore. And studies show that when we don't get our restorative sleep, or we don't get enough sleep, right, it's going to impact not only mood levels, meaning you can be more depressed and or more anxious. You're just not going to be able to tolerate extra stimulation. You're not going to be able to tolerate conflicts. You're not going to be tolerate a lot of different things if you're not going to bed basically at the same time every night and getting between 8 to 10 hours. I was reading something regarding more of kind of chronic conditions and other healthcare issues for women, and how this one woman had stated, sometimes you may need to get 10 to 12 hours of sleep to really replenish your system. And I get that's a stretch for many, many women, but sleep cannot be emphasized enough in what it is that you need. So I hope some of these are helpful for you today, knowing that one, being an introvert is an absolutely incredible thing. And whatever those next 3 letters are after your introversion is all okay too. But it's knowing when you stand in your strength and you understand you better, you are more able to create the life that you're wanting to create instead of pushing those things away and trying to be somebody that you're not. That's, again, trying to live up to society's standards or be more extroverted, and at least here in the US, because it's so reinforced, or hustle, hustle, hustle all the time. And I know I said in the midlife unraveling, hustling is just so not healthy. It's also not a great badge of honor to wear, in my opinion, because it's a depletion of your system. So being more in tune with who you are, you can truly navigate and go more to your true north, meaning following your compass, not somebody else's. And it's embracing these things. So if somebody else doesn't understand why you need more sleep, why you need more quiet time, if you choose to explain it, beautiful. You don't have to. It's just like, yep, this is part of who I am, and this is part of my self-care routine. And then again, having that self-compassion, meaning self-love. When you have that built in, and when you feel more of that, it is so much easier, and that may sound really kind of highfalutin or woo-woo-y, but it really is easier to let go of the external information that comes at you with you need to be somebody that you're not. And it really helps keep the anxiety and fears more at bay because you know you more. And you have worked through old stuff, you've let go of old limiting beliefs, and it's like, it's okay to be fully me, whatever that may look like. And if I need to do more walks in nature, if I need to definitely, stay off of social media for specific amounts of time because I want to spend time with my family, all of that is okay. You're not here to perform for everybody else on this planet. You're here to be you. And that means all of you to the best of your ability in the present moment. So I hope, again, these tips help out and you have a better understanding of the distinction between being introverted versus where fear can hold you back, fear can impact your life, and that you see introversion more as a strength, and then whatever those other letters are behind that I, that it's part of you. And yeah, you can go kind of in and out some of these other characteristics or qualities that the other personalities or temperaments have, and that's all fine. We borrow from a lot of different things when we're more aware and when we're able to have that flexibility. But it's really paying attention to as well. It's like, wow, do my fears run me? And then do I blame or make that an excuse that I'm an introvert? Or do I accept those qualities of myself and I'm changing those fears or limiting beliefs that come up? All right, take care, ladies. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Do you want to receive episodes directly to your inbox or stay informed on my latest offerings? Then I invite you to go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/podcast, and there is a button for you to sign up for my newsletter. Thank you again.